Real stories of werewolves, of Dogman from history, from your emails, illustrated and animated with the democratizing magic of machine learning AI. Welcome to Scary Stories.
Werewolf Fighting Alien. Dear Scary Stories NYC, I'm going to tell you about the one time I saw a Dogman back in the early 1970s. It happened in the woods behind my cousin's backyard in Michigan. The night air froze in my lungs as I watched them circle each other in the moonlit clearing. Two impossible creatures, legends brought to terrible life beneath the pine trees. On my left stood what I could only describe as a Dogman, 7 feet of coiled muscle, topped with a wolf's head, but standing upright like a man. Its amber eyes blazed with primal fury, catching moonlight like burning coals. Each breath it took emerged as a rumbling growl that vibrated through the forest floor and into my bones. Facing it was something science fiction writers couldn't have even dreamed up. A humanoid figure with sleek black skin that absorbed light rather than reflecting it. Where its head should have been, a transparent dome glowed with an ethereal blue light, revealing 2 pinpoints inside that might have been eyes. Its movements were too weird to be anything from Earth. My cousin Jimmy grabbed my arm, his fingers digging in so tight that I'd find bruises the next morning. Neither of us breathed as the Dogman lunged forward with impossible speed, massive claws extended. The alien creature dodged with mechanical precision, its movements betraying no fear, no hesitation, just cold calculation. Pine needles crunched beneath my pro-kids as I shifted my weight, and Jimmy yanked me down harder behind the fallen oak that concealed us. The Dogman's ear turned slightly in our direction. For one terrible moment, I was certain it had heard us. That moment stretched into eternity as my 13-year-old mind grappled with what my eyes were witnessing. 2 creatures that shouldn't exist, couldn't exist, locked in combat just 30 feet away from where we hid. I'd go on to spend 47 years trying to convince myself it was all my imagination, a child's mind transformed by late-night monster movies and sugary soda. But whenever I close my eyes, I can still feel the night air against my face. I can still smell pine sap and something else, something metallic and foreign. And I know what I saw was real. But I should start from the beginning. It was the summer of 1973 when bell-bottoms were still cool and Star Trek reruns fueled our cosmic dreams. I was spending the weekend with my cousin Jimmy in a sleepy Michigan suburb where the houses were bigger than in my neighborhood and backed up against miles of pristine woodland. Jimmy's family had everything mine didn't: a color TV, air conditioning, and most importantly, freedom. My Aunt Lisa and my Uncle Dale believed in free-range parenting decades before it became a term. Kids need space to become themselves, Uncle Dale would say, tousling Jimmy's hair, while my own father would have been checking my homework for the 3rd time. Their split-level ranch sat at the very edge of the development, with nothing between their manicured backyard and the dense forest, except a weathered picnic table where we'd eat popsicles and trade baseball cards. Jimmy's bedroom window faced those woods, and he'd filled notebooks with observations of deer, foxes, and once, though nobody believed him, a black bear. "This is Command Central," Jimmy announced that Saturday evening, proudly showing off his new telescope positioned by the window. A stack of UFO magazines sat on his dresser, beside a dog-eared copy of Chariots of the Gods by Eric von Däniken. His walls were plastered with posters, the Apollo missions, Star Trek characters, and grainy photos of supposed flying saucers. "Dad says it's all just baloney," Jimmy whispered conspiratorially, but Mom thinks there might be something to it. She once saw something weird over Lake Michigan when she was our age. We spent the afternoon building model rockets and planning our futures as astronauts before dinner, which was homemade pizza and root beer floats, a combination my mother would never have allowed at home. As twilight settled, Uncle Dale announced it was time for Chiller Theater, the Saturday night monster movie showcase. "You boys don't stay up late," Aunt Lisa cautioned as she headed upstairs with a paperback novel. "And Dale, don't let them watch anything too scary." Uncle Dale winked at us. "It's just the classics, honey, nothing they can't handle." That night's feature was Invasion of the Saucermen, little green aliens with bulbous heads terrorizing teenagers. Uncle Dale fell asleep 20 minutes in, his soft snores providing background music, as Jimmy and I whispered excitedly about what we would do if aliens chose that night to land. I'd want to make friends with them, I insisted, like in the day the Earth stood still. No way, Jimmy countered. They'd probably dissect you. I would hide and take pictures, and then I'd become famous. We were still debating alien intentions when the first strange light flashed across Jimmy's bedroom window, momentarily turning the ceiling an electric blue. Then another. And another. "Did you see that?" Jimmy whispered, scrambling toward his telescope. And just like that, our hypothetical scenario became terrifyingly real. Uncle Dale's snores grew louder as the credits rolled on Invasion of the Saucermen, the flickering TV casting dancing shadows across the room. Jimmy nudged me with his elbow, his face animated with the particular mischief that only 13-year-old boys can muster. "Come on, let's raid the kitchen before bed." That was the beauty of staying at Jimmy's house. Midnight snacks weren't contraband, but practically encouraged. At home, my mother would have lectured me about ruining my teeth or spoiling my breakfast, but here in the woods in Michigan, the rules bent like willow branches. We tiptoed past Uncle Dale, his newspaper falling across his chest, rising and falling with each breath. The kitchen was a wonderland of forbidden delights. Hostess cupcakes, Coca-Cola, and Jimmy's secret weapon, a family-sized bag of Doritos hidden behind the cereal boxes. "Mom thinks she's so clever," Jimmy snickered, retrieving his treasure. "She hides them in a new spot each week." Arms loaded with our contraband, we ascended to Jimmy's bedroom sanctuary, closing the door with practiced quietness. His room was a museum of boyhood obsessions. Model planes dangling from a fishing line attached to the ceiling, a collection of polished rocks on the windowsill, and his prized possession, a dog-eared star chart with his own handwritten notes in the margins. "Mr. Wilkins says I could be an astronomer someday," he said, mouth already full of chips. "I've logged 17 unidentified aerial phenomena since Christmas alone." I rolled my eyes. "You mean you've seen 17 airplanes and pretended they were flying saucers?" "You're such a skeptic," Jimmy said, but not unkindly. "That's why scientists work in teams, you know. I need someone to challenge my theories." We sprawled across his bedroom floor, trading fantastical theories about alien civilizations. Would they be peaceful explorers, or would they be invasion forces? Would they have technology that could cure diseases, or would they have weapons that could level cities? The sugar from the cupcakes fueled our imagination, sending it into hyperdrive as the digital clock on Jimmy's nightstand silently ticked past midnight. "What would you do if aliens landed right here, like right in the backyard?" I asked, my voice dropping to a theatrical whisper. Jimmy didn't hesitate. "I'd make first contact. I'd become the ambassador between worlds." "What about you?" "I'd probably just freeze," I admitted. "Or maybe faint." We dissolved into laughter, unaware that the universe was about to call our bluff. The laughter died in my throat as a brilliant blue light washed through Jimmy's bedroom, so bright it momentarily turned midnight to noon. For one disorienting second, I thought Aunt Lisa had flipped on the overhead light to scold us for staying up too late. But the light vanished as suddenly as it had appeared, leaving us blinking in its afterglow. "What was that?" I asked. But Jimmy was already scrambling toward the window, nearly upending his telescope in his haste. "You saw it, didn't you?" Another flash illuminated the backyard, this time lingering long enough for me to see it wasn't coming from the house or the street, but from somewhere deeper into the woods. It pulsed with an otherworldly rhythm. 3 quick bursts, followed by one prolonged glow that seemed to seep between the pine trees like blue syrup. My heart hammered against my ribs as I joined Jimmy at the window. The logical part of my brain, the part that sounded suspiciously like my father, offered reasonable explanations. Car headlights on a distant road, teenagers with flashlights, perhaps even heat lightning from a storm brewing beyond the horizon. But when I pressed my face against the cool glass, what I saw defied all rational explanation. Hovering above the tree line was a disc-shaped object, rimmed with lights that shifted from electric blue to emerald green. It moved with deliberate slowness, as if surveying the landscape below, occasionally emitting those brilliant flashes that we'd seen earlier. "Holy smokes," Jimmy said. That's not military. That's not anything from Earth. I wanted to disagree with him, to find the flaw in his logic, but my voice had abandoned me. The object rotated slightly, revealing its full silhouette against the star-studded sky. A perfect disc with a domed center, just like in Jimmy's magazines. "We have to get closer to it," Jimmy declared, already putting on his sneakers. "Are you crazy?" I finally found my voice. "We should wake up your dad." Jimmy shook his head vigorously. "Adults never believe this stuff. Remember when Mr. Peterson reported lights over the lake? Everyone laughed at him for weeks." He thrust my sneakers toward me. "Besides, we've been watching a science fiction movie tonight. They're just gonna blame the TV. This is our chance, man. Our one chance to see something incredible." As the strange craft descended lower into the forest, my curiosity wrestled with my fear, and it won. I slipped on my sneakers too, heart pounding like a drum in my chest. "How do we get out without waking them?" I whispered. Jimmy grinned, already sliding open his window. "Trust me, man, I've done this before." Jimmy's practiced hand slid the window screen out of its frame with barely a whisper. He'd clearly done it before, despite his parents' seemingly relaxed rules. The cool night air rushed in, carrying the scent of pine and something else. Something metallic and foreign that made the hair on my arms stand on end. "The trick," Jimmy whispered, "is to land on the roof of the garage first, then shimmy down the drain pipe." I stared at him in disbelief. In any other circumstances, I would have backed out immediately. I was an honor roll student and a rule follower extraordinaire. My mother often boasted to relatives about how she never had to worry about me getting into trouble. And yet here I was, about to become an accomplice in what felt like the beginning of every alien abduction story ever told. "We'll be quick," Jimmy promised, sensing my hesitation. "We'll just take a peek and then we'll run back before anyone knows we're even gone." The blue light pulsed again through the trees, calling to us like a beacon. Whatever fear I harbored was smothered by something more powerful. Curiosity that burned through my veins like wildfire. I nodded, and just like that, I was transformed from rule follower to explorer. The garage roof greeted my sneakers with a soft thud, thankfully muffled by a thick layer of pine needles. Jimmy moved with the confidence of a cat, leading us down the drain pipe and across the dew-dampened lawn. Each step toward the woods felt like crossing an invisible boundary between the world I knew and something altogether different. As we reached the tree line, I glanced back at the house, so warm and safe with its warm yellow windows and chimney. For a fleeting moment, I considered turning back, but instead, I ran after Jimmy into the darkness. The forest in the darkness of night was nothing like the friendly woodland of daytime explorations. Shadows took on menacing shapes, and familiar paths twisted into labyrinths. Without the soft blue glow emanating from deeper within the trees, we would have been hopelessly lost within minutes. "This way," Jimmy whispered, his voice tight with excitement. We pushed through thickets of underbrush, brambles tugging at our pajama pants. The temperature seemed to drop with each step, until our breath clouded before us like spectral messengers. Normally teeming with life, the forest had fallen eerily silent. No crickets chirping, no owls hooting, as if every living creature was holding its breath alongside us. "Did you hear that?" I froze, gripping Jimmy's sleeve. A twig had snapped somewhere to our left, too heavy to be a squirrel or a raccoon. We both turned, looking through the darkness to see nothing. "Probably just a deer," Jimmy said, but his voice lacked conviction. The strange blue light pulsed again, closer now, drawing us deeper into the woods like moths to a flame. As we crested a small ridge, the trees began to thin, revealing a clearing ahead. Jimmy dropped to his knees, pulling me down beside him. "Look," he breathed, pointing through a gap in the underbrush. There was no UFO, but there was something there that was completely unforgettable. My first thought was how quiet it had become, just an absolute silence that pressed against my eardrums like physical weight. I asked my cousin Jimmy, "What's that?" In the center of the clearing stood what I at first mistook for a man in some kind of a diving suit, but as my eyes adjusted, I realized with gut-wrenching certainty that nothing human stood before us. Its body was sleek and obsidian, seeming to absorb the moonlight rather than reflect it. Where its head should have been was the dome, the transparent, glowing inner blue light dome that pulsed in hypnotic rhythm. It was the same color that the UFO had been, but now It was on a two-legged creature that stood upright like a man. Through the dome I could make out what might have been eyes, pinpricks of amber luminescence that scanned the forest methodically. Neither of us spoke as the creature, the robot, the alien, whatever it was, moved with fluid precision across the clearing, stopping occasionally to examine something on the ground, or to touch a tree trunk with its elongated fingers. "It's collecting samples," Jimmy breathed, his scientific mind working even through his fear. Like in National Geographic, when they study new environments. I wanted to run. Everything inside me told me to run back to the house, but my muscles had turned to stone, refusing any command to flee. The creature, or whatever it was, knelt, its jointed limbs bending in ways that reminded me of a praying mantis. From somewhere within its sleek form, it produced a device that emitted a soft humming sound. The air around it seemed to shimmer like heat waves off summer asphalt. And then, the forest erupted. Something massive burst from the tree line opposite our hiding place, a blur of muscle and fur and rage that moved faster than my eyes could track. The creature with the dome head barely had time to rise before 7 feet of nightmare slammed into it with bone-crushing force. A werewolf. That was my first wild thought. But no, its proportions were wrong, its movements too deliberate. This was something ancient, something that had stalked Michigan's forests since long before Europeans arrived with their silver bullets and full moon legends. This was the Dogman of campfire stories. It stood terrifyingly real before us, amber eyes blazing with primal fury as it circled the fallen alien robot. The mechanical man regained its footing with surprising grace, seemingly undamaged by the brutal attack. They faced each other in the moonlight, nature's perfect predator against something from beyond the stars, neither yielding ground, in a standoff that defied reality. When they clashed again, it was with calculated violence. The Dogman's claws raked against the alien's obsidian skin, creating sparks like flint on steel. The robot countered with inhuman speed, its movements fluid yet precise, landing blows that would have shattered oak. Jimmy's fingers dug deeper into my arm as we watched in horrified fascination. The battle seemed to bend time itself. Maybe it lasted minutes. Maybe it lasted hours. All I knew was that with each passing moment, the Dogman's attacks grew more ferocious, more desperate, while the alien's movements remained coldly efficient. Until something changed. The dome atop the alien flickered, its blue glow faltering momentarily. The Dogman, sensing weakness, lunged with renewed savagery, forcing the alien to retreat. One step, then another, toward the opposite side of the clearing. "It's winning," Jimmy whispered, disbelief coloring his voice. I nodded, unable to tear my eyes away from the impossible battle unfolding before us. The Dogman pressed its advantage, herding the alien toward the darkness beyond the moonlit clearing, until both disappeared into the shadows of the ancient forest. The silence that followed felt louder than any sound I had ever heard. For endless seconds, Jimmy and I remained frozen behind our fallen log, afraid that the slightest movement might draw the attention of whatever that was that had vanished into the darkness. The clearing stood empty now, bathed in innocent moonlight, as though nothing extraordinary had happened there. "We should go," I finally whispered, my voice strange and distant to my own ears. Jimmy nodded, but neither of us moved. Our spell was broken only when a distant voice carried through the trees, Uncle Dale calling our names, his tone edged with worry. This snapped us back to reality. We scrambled to our feet, legs tingling with pins and needles, and began our frantic retreat through the midnight forest. Each shadow concealed potential horrors. Every rustling branch became a reaching claw. We ran as only children can run when monsters are on their heels, with desperate, heedless speed. We were nearly at the tree line marking Jimmy's backyard when the humming started, a deep, resonant vibration that seemed to emanate from everywhere at once. The sound crawled up through the soles of my sneakers, rattling my teeth, and settled somewhere behind my eyes. "Look," Jimmy gasped, pointing skyward. Above us, barely visible through the pine boughs, a disc-shaped craft rose with impossible grace. Blue-green lights pulsed along its rim as it ascended, spinning slowly. For one breathtaking moment, it hovered directly overhead, close enough that I could see patterns etched into its metallic skin, symbols that resembled no alphabet I'd ever seen. And then, without warning, it shot straight up into the night sky, leaving nothing but a fading streak of light and the lingering scent of ozone. Uncle Dale found us a moment later, standing frozen at the edge of the woods, our faces upturned to an empty sky. "What in the world are you two doing out here in your pajamas?" he demanded, relief and anger warring in his voice. Jimmy and I exchanged a glance, loaded with unspoken agreement. No one was going to believe us, so we shouldn't tell anyone. "We thought we saw a meteor," Jimmy offered, his talent for quick fibs saving us. That summer night in 1973 changed something fundamental inside me. It opened a door that could never fully close again. Jimmy and I made a pact never to speak of what we'd witnessed, not even to each other. But on clear nights when stars pierce the darkness like distant lighthouses, I still find myself scanning the sky, wondering about that alien visitor and its woodland adversary. Some nights I swear I hear timber wolves howling deeper and more resonant than they should, and I wonder if something ancient still guards our forests against visitors from beyond. When the wind whispers through pine needles, sometimes I imagine it carries warnings. Stay away. This wilderness guarded by the teeth and claws of the North American Dogman. Tonight's EP is John Carnagon. His generosity goes on and on. Please join me in thanking channel member John Carnagon for making this episode possible. As a channel member, not only here on YouTube, but also a PayPal channel member through peterbernard.com, John gets to see our secret, uncensored episodes. For more information about how you can help this channel stay online, like the heroic and eternal John Carnagon, here's our international TV spokesmongrel, Henry Lee Dogman. Hank? Thanks, Biggie. And thanks to all of you for watching this far. If you liked it, please click like. If you'd like to see more of our work, please subscribe. And also click that bell icon if you'd like to be notified when we put out a new episode. To become an executive producer, you can donate to us through the thanks button under each of our videos or through our paypal.me/peterbernard209 page. To receive cool perks like secret uncensored Dogman episodes far too wild to ever run on this channel, you can become a YouTube channel member by clicking the join button or join our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com. Joining either at the $3 a month level or above gets you access to our over 25 hours of secret uncensored Dogman stories available nowhere else. Do you have a scary story about Dogman or some other kind of high strangeness that happened to you? Let us know by emailing us at scarystoriesnyc@gmail.com or by leaving us a voicemail message at 804-LA-SCARY. You may need to call back on that one. It cuts off after, I think, 3 minutes. And if you don't want to do any of that stuff, thank you for simply watching to the end. Good night, and have a scary tomorrow.
Come back for more scary stories.